All right, part D, which is a little tricky problem. We want to find the total distance traveled by the particle from t equals 0 to t equals 2. And I'm going to need some more room, so I'll start working up here. We know that distance traveled is going to equal the integral, in this case from 0 to 2, of the magnitude of the velocity, or the speed of the particle. And this is sort of a vector or a parametric function, so the magnitude of that is going to be, that's the integral from 0 to 2 still, the square root of x prime of t squared plus y prime of t squared. Now, I can just type the x prime part in just fine in the calculator, but there's a problem with y prime, and that is this. From 0 to 1, y prime will be negative 2, because the slope of negative 2 here. This is the graph for y. From 1 to 2, y prime equals 0, because it's horizontal. So I'm going to actually have to do two integrals. The first integral, so I'll write it down here, I should have enough space, is going to be an integral from 0 to 1 of the square root of x prime of t, so I should have a dt here, x prime of t, which is t squared plus sine of 3t squared, all squared, plus y prime of t squared, which is going to be negative 2 squared. And of course I could put 4 in the calculator. I'm going to type this out as is. The second part, so that goes from 0 to 1. Now I need to consider a separate integral from 1 to 2. So plus integral from 1 to 2. I have the same x prime of t, so I do t squared plus sine of 3t squared, quantity squared, plus, and in this case, y prime is 0, so I get a 0 squared. And yes, I could simplify it down in the calculator. 0 squared is 0. The square root and the squared would cancel out here. As long as everything's positive in there, it would be fine. But I'm just going to type it in as is. No sense making things trickier by doing some more algebra. Just type it in, you get the answer, move on. So math 9, we're doing the integral of x, oh sorry, I need a square root here, don't I? The integral of the square root of, I have some parentheses for the x prime, so x squared plus the sine of 3x squared. Close off the sine, close off that, x prime squared, plus negative 2 for y prime squared. And that goes from 0 to 1. Oh, sorry, with respect to x, from 0 to 1. And I add on the integral of same x prime, so square root of x squared plus the sine of 3x squared, close that off, squared, plus 0 squared, close that off, dx from 1 to 2, and give it a little bit of time to do the work. As long as I typed everything in correctly, I should end up with 4.350.